Welcome to You're Hired. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. Today we're going to be talking about what to wear to an interview. You're listening to 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. I want to welcome my guests. Today we've got two special guests who are experts in clothing. And we'll take a picture later, but based on what they're wearing, obviously they've got taste and style. So with me today, I've got Betsy Fisher. Betsy opened up her boutique. And Betsy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What's the boutique called?
Betsy Fisher.
There you go. In 1988, because she couldn't find an interview suit. That's a good reason, right?
Yeah, it is.
Open up a store. So as a new college graduate, she was not interested in Ann Taylor basics or the big-shouldered suits with floppy bow ties. I remember those, then in style. The 80s were not good for women.
I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. Her husband, Lyle, joined the business in 1994, and their two daughters, now 20 and 17, claimed the back room of their Dupont Circle store as their primary residence. Great. Awesome. And also with me is Christina Pham. Christina, welcome. You're from Black Label.
Blank Label.
Blank Label. Sorry about that. Blank Label. And tell me a little about you, because unfortunately, I don't have your bio in front of me, but...
Oh, no worries. My name's Christina Pham. I'm a menswear specialist at Blank Label, located in downtown D.C., so really close to the White House. We are a custom clothing store, and we specialize in everything from casual wear, so like things like, button-down shirts, chinos, jeans, polo shirts, and all the way up to dress shirts, suit separates, tuxedos, etc. We're headquartered in Boston, but that's a little bit about my company.
Cool. Awesome. I'm so glad you're here. So, I've been interviewing people for 20 years, and I would say most of the time, and these are generally for professional jobs, most of the time folks are spot on. I mean, it's a suit, right, for a man, and even for a woman, it's like a pantsuit or a jacket, and it's never really, crazy. But when I do my interview workshops, I get a lot of questions on what people should wear to an interview. A lot of questions. And I think that it's kind of like, what should I wear that's going to make me look my best and give me an advantage? I think that's really the question. And I have a philosophy, but I'd love to hear, Betsy, why don't you kick us off? What's your, the underlying notion that you bring to a client when you're looking to dress them for an interview?
Well, when we're dressing a woman for an interview for a job, the thing we're trying to do is give her confidence, and we want her clothing to do some of the work for her. That way she can think about what she's saying and thinking, and she never has to tug at anything. She doesn't have to be worried about the impression she's giving off because she has it down pat before she goes into that room. So we encourage her to think really hard about what she's wearing. And if she wants to, there's one rule that I usually have, which is that go tailored. Because tailored it acts almost like armor, and it also gives the impression that you're quite put together. And also tailored and formal clothing, it's really interesting. They do make you think differently and feel differently. So that way she can bring that to the interview with her.
Yeah, there's that expression that clothing makes the man or woman, right? So one of the things, I know to hear what you have to think about this, Christine, but the advice I give folks is dress one level up from where you're interviewing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, so if they're interviewing at a high-powered consulting firm, wear the power tie, wear the cufflinks, the suit, and that kind of thing, and maybe even the watch, right? That's really important. But if you're interviewing for a software engineer job, maybe it's just like a button-down shirt, no tie, and a pair of slacks. Right. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's part of kind of being aware of where you're going to be working at, and also showing that you are going to be fitting in with the culture of the company. Obviously, you want to do that kind of step above dressing up, because you want to show respect, one, for the person that you're interviewing with. You want to show that you are respecting that they're even considering you as a possible employee, respecting their time, and also showing really like respect for yourself. So whether that's wearing a suit, button-down shirt, pants, you want something that fits you well. And I definitely agree with Betsy, when you're in something that fits you well, but also the style you like, you're just more comfortable and confident.
Yeah, so everything's a communication. I guess that's probably, you're nodding your head.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so speak about that. I mean, I'm interested in like how is it that we communicate, and what's what should I do to communicate the message I want to communicate as far as my clothing, it's not just my clothing, right? It's my hair, my accessories.
Yeah. I mean, by wearing clothes that fit you, you really kind of accentuate your personal features. With the suit, you can do things like kind of for a man, make your figure look very masculine and present a kind of powerful persona.
And on the women's side, too, actually, frankly, you can hide flaws if you need to. And in fact, you're better off not going all the way like, here's my voluptuous body. You're actually better off saying, here I am, I'm professional, clean, cool, and comfortable, and not, I'm hot. That is not what you want to be emanating at your average professional interview.
Yeah, same on the men's side. A lot of people have uneven shoulders, so something like a suit jacket will hide something like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So what does someone do if they're looking to get clothing, but they don't know what to do? Should they go off the rack? Should they go custom?
Custom is so expensive. Proper custom, at least in the women's world, is so expensive that unless they really need to, or unless they're talking C-suite positions, it's not generally necessary because there are some really lovely clothing lines. So you really have to talk to them about what's their price range, because the chances are they can go down the street and get something pretty super at Ann Taylor that will do the job depending on the level that they're going for. But actually, the higher up you go, the less likely it is that you're going to wear something that's even matching top and bottom. For women especially, higher
talk about that a little bit. What do you mean top and bottom?
Well, what I mean is that for women interviewing for higher level positions, say they're coming in as a partner at a law firm or they're looking for a C-suite position, to wear a suit is too aspirational. So that what they want to do is they really want to put together separates, but they have to be so perfectly polished and put together. It's actually 3 times harder than wearing a suit, that it looks natural, and an enormous amount of work has gone into picking exactly those separates that they're going to wear. It's really, it's a challenge.
So instead of wearing a suit, you'd wear a top that came from one outfit and a bottom that came from another outfit.
It might be the same vendor even. It might be the same designer. And on the other hand, you might just say, absolutely not. So we actually worked through that with a partner changing firms lately, and it took weeks because you're trying to get the right fit, and then the blacks have to match, or the blacks have to go together, or this, that, and the other. But it is, I'll never forget a woman coming into the administration who was going to head a department, and she wanted an outfit for her first day. We showed her suits, and she said, absolutely not. That's what my underlings will be wearing. So it's a really interesting power game for women as it goes up.
Right. So clothing is not just about what you got to wear clothing so you're not walking around naked, but it's...
Oh, no, absolutely.
Totally is.
Mm-hmm. It's a challenge, actually. And it's a fun one, though, because that way they can also express themselves as well. You're not just... If you can figure out how to wear the blue with the black and do it polished from head to toe with a blue-black shoe or something, you are actually saying, I'm managing an aesthetic appearance too. It's actually so hard to do that other women do respect it, men respect it. It just has impact when you walk in the room.
Cool. That's awesome. And so what do you think about that, Christine?
Yeah, definitely. I get a lot of questions from clients coming into Blank Label about, like, how do I match this pair of pants? Or I have this pair of pants. How do I match it with this jacket? Or, like, I have this suit where the pants have ripped. What should I get? Should I get a matching black? A lot of times I would recommend no, because just like Betsy said, like, it's very hard to match blacks. And also, if you're looking at the finishing of fabrics too, something very kind of like you would wear to a formal event, like a tuxedo, has a certain sheen to it. Whereas, like, if you were to try to pair that with a flannel material, has a more matte finish, it just doesn't go well together. So yeah, if you wanted to get really like nitty gritty into the menswear world, there's definite things that you want to match and mix and match with. And there's definitely like this word called sprezzatura, which is kind of like this nonchalance and general ease that comes off of how you wear things. And it's kind of like you look put together, but it's like you didn't really try.
Spezzatura.
Yeah, sprezzatura.
And that's an Italian word?
Yeah.
And it means you look great.
Just kind of like this general ease about you. Yeah. You can tell that person has put work into like what they're wearing, but it's like they didn't care about it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny because as a guy, I mean, most of my life I wear very casual clothing. And here today sometimes I wear a button-down shirt, but I find that it's not comfortable. And I kind of go for the artsy-fartsy look. So I'm wearing like a black pair of jeans and a black t-shirt, and it's easy and it's comfortable. But I wonder, like, if I was going to be more stylish, what would I wear? Like, what does that communicate? And I don't think about it, but like when I go to an interview, I think about exactly what I'm wearing. And if I go out with my wife, she makes sure that what I'm wearing kind of works. So it's not a natural sense for guys. In fact, when we first met about a dozen years ago, she had me do my colors, which was kind of fascinating. What do you think about the color me thing?
It's developed over time. So it used to be that people would walk around saying, I'm a winter, I'm a summer. And very occasionally now we have people come in with panels of fabrics and prints that have been selected for them by a stylist. But for the most part, we really find that there's usually a version of almost every color that people can wear. And we love,
is that right?
Yeah, and we love to get people into colors that they think, oh, I can't wear that, because it's exciting and it gives them something new. And one of the most fun things about dressing women is showing them who else they can be. And this thing about men getting dressed, though, my husband, he is a stickler and he is a stylist and he is constantly evolving his look. So this is a conversation we have at home all the time. He would probably love to meet you, Christina.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to meet him. Love to chat with him.
So when he goes out casually, does he wear no, he's always put together?
No, he has a casual look, right? But I like to keep that one at home. But when he goes out, it's a button down where the sleeve has been rolled precisely, where it's exactly the right belt, it's exactly the right pair of socks. He goes all the way.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I've only recently gotten some people coming in to the shop and asking, like, what do you think I am, a winter or summer? And I was like, I have no idea about this color me concept. For me, there are general things like somebody's skin tone that you basically don't want to wash out your coloring. So like a redhead or somebody that's like very pale probably doesn't want to wear just a white shirt or a pink shirt. But people can counteract that by putting on a navy jacket. So basically, you have a low contrast item with a high contrast item. So kind of just balancing the outfit to kind of accentuate or highlight parts of your skin tone, your eyes.
And what's the process that you go through? We'll go with, but what's the process you go through with a woman who's coming into your shop? Like, I don't know, right? I mean, because although women definitely have a better sense of style, I think culturally, where women have more options around clothing, so they think about it, but not all women are good at dressing themselves.
Do you know our best customers are women who hate shopping and who really let us take over? They might be very opinionated once they get to the dressing room, but they basically walk in and just almost dread the process of looking through and not really knowing what will work for them. So it's such a touchy-feely process. You really have to figure out, do they want to be helped? Do they not want to be helped? And then if there might be some question like what's coming up, what's the next thing on your social calendar, that just all of a sudden there's a torrent of information and you realize she has just changed shape and she would like a lot of help. And those turn into really productive sessions. And I believe in taking it utterly slowly because I want these women to trust me and to come back. And so the absolute hallmark is she has to be our business card. When she walks out of the store, she has to look good and feel comfortable, and that brings business back. It brings her back. It's just such a slow, long-term thing that we take our time with it. So
it's probably something you do so naturally now that you don't take it apart. So totally. let's take it apart a little bit for the folks who are listening. So when someone comes into the store and they're like, hey, I've got a job interview. I'm guessing it's because they have something coming up, right? Mm-hmm. Something's happening. Is it about a job interview, or is it about a date, or about going to, what's usually what people coming to the store?
Usually it's a special occasion, a wedding,
special occasion,
a date. Mm-hmm.
A wedding or a date.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the questions you ask to kind of suss out what's going to work?
What did you have in mind? It's pretty basic, things like that. But truly people like to talk, so it's more like, tell me about it. You could just do it. It can be that easy and that simple. Because the first rule of thumb when they walk in the door is make yourself at home. So after they have the sense of they're safe and I'm not going to come running after them to say, what do you want to buy? They can relax and figure out how much they want to tell me.
Right. And so what are you listening for? What are some of the distinctions that will say, this is going to be better than this?
It's visual. It's not really as much about what they say, because you're looking at them and assessing where do they have trouble fitting clothes or what would be absolutely magnificent. So I think for me it's almost computer-like that they walk in and I start thinking mentally about each and every rack, what will look good on this customer. And then I hope that her taste coincides with what I've picked for her. And my best day is when somebody will come in and say, take a look at me, what should I put on? And then if I get it right, And it's like, this jacket will fit you perfectly. Those are the magic moments, and I love them. Those are just great.
So I mean, I've never really felt like I was cool, but I wear sneakers, and I'd wear running shoes, which I realize are just really ugly, and they're not good to wear even if I go out. They're for running. So I went to a local sneaker store, and I'll hold them up. But I've got these green sneakers, and I had the exact, and I like them. I get a lot of compliments on them. Same experience. I went into the store. I said, "Look, I need something that's colorful, pair of like just casual, run sneakers, but that are kind of cool." The guy just went back. Boom! First pair of, put them right on my foot. They fit perfectly, and I walked right out of the store. And it was a great experience. Unfortunately, it's in Arlington, and they closed down a little while ago. It was right by the Boston Mall. But that's what you try to do.
Oh, those are the best moments, absolutely, as a retailer. But here's how women are different. She would put that on. They would be absolutely perfect. And then she'd say, and now what else? And then
like
2 hours later, you might come back to exactly that green sneaker, but you're going to go through a lot of stuff before that's it.
Yeah. When my wife and I got married, I sent her shopping with my mother, who was a style. Like New York City style was her whole thing. And they spent days and days and days. And they actually came, like you said, they came back to the first thing they looked at. That was the thing they got.
That's cool. It's kind of fun. If it's absolutely affirming that, hey, that was the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely some of my clients are pretty much just like, I don't know what I'm talking about. You're obviously the expert, so tell me what I should wear. Tell me how this fits. If you think it looks good, I'll go with it. Other people are a little bit pickier, and, maybe they're used to custom before. So yeah, but definitely, clients that come into Blank Label, whether it's, here in DC, the 2 shops we have in Boston or Chicago, we're appointment only. So we like to dedicate, whether it's 30 minutes to an hour, and really get to know the client. We usually welcome them in, offer them water, espresso, and we kind of have just a sit down. And, we get to learn first off, how did you hear about us? And what are your struggles? Where do you need help? What do you need help with? So whether it's, a lot of times, actually right now this season, a lot of grooms and, their fiance coming in, they need assistance on, how to dress their groom's party as well. But a lot of times it's just people coming in with different fit issues.
When it's the bride and the groom, does the bride give a lot of...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times fittings take a lot longer when there's a second person there, because you definitely have some men that are like, they can't decide for themselves. So I think we had one client the other day that had to text or call his girlfriend with every decision, like, what color button do you want? Do you want a pocket on your shirt? So yeah, it definitely... fittings can take a little bit longer when there's a second party involved.
And what are the things that men are saying now that they want in their clothing?
In general, it's just better fitting clothing. We have a lot of people that are, have an athletic build. Whatever quirks they may have, they just want to kind of address them. So today I had a client, he's working out a lot, does a lot of squats, so he has trouble finding pants that fit well. A lot of times people have to compromise if they were to go off the rack. So if he wanted to go in to a shop and find pants that fit him in the thighs, he's going to have to get a huge pair of pants. So waist is probably going to be really huge. The leg throughout is probably going to be like a stovepipe instead of maybe a tapered look that's a little bit more flattering and maybe more of the times. So yeah, kind of general things like that. People with broader shoulders too have difficulty finding things that fit them. People that are taller, a lot of times those taller clients, they end up off the rack picking out a shirt that's very large. So it's very loose in the body. So it's in general, I would say mostly for shirts, people are wanting something that fits them tailored throughout the body. And they're tired of compromising between, are my sleeves long enough, or does it fit me well in the collar? And
the clothing that both of your stores, it's tailored fit.
We have a huge range.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do people, because I know I remember when I'd have to buy pants, no matter what, I'd have to get them tailored, because they would come with like a 5-foot leg, and so you always get that tailored. I don't know if that's not the case anymore. It seems like they're a little bit more spot on with the lengths.
I think it really just depends on the brand. Unfortunately, stores have basically decided this is my norm. And it's they're trying to fit as many people as possible, but a lot of times it doesn't fit people well.
Yeah.
So all of our stuff at Blank Label is custom made. There's a lot of kind of playing around with that word. A lot of companies are using the term bespoke, made to measure, and there are differences between, the two kinds.
What are some of the differences?
So made to measure is if you go into a store, basically they have a size 42 jacket, and you're going to put it on, and they're going to decide, what we should adjust. Like, I'm going to lengthen the sleeve, I'm going to, bring in the waist a little bit, and that's what we'll do. So they're taking that existing jacket and then tailoring it to you. So that's what made to measure is. Custom in our terms, is meaning custom fit to you and to your preference, and also custom details as well. But you can call a shirt and say it's custom just because you decide if you want to put like a brown button on it versus a white button.
But is the custom where you take all the measurements of someone's body and then make something to that?
Yeah, so that's what we do at Blank Label, but I'm saying a lot of other companies misuse the word custom.
Mm-hmm.
Bespoke is the tier above what we do. Bespoke is when you typically meet with a tailor and they consult on how a garment should fit you. And then they actually oversee the people that are drafting the pattern of your suit, cutting the suit, and sewing it together. And then...
so they're picking the fabric, they're coming
They're
up with
not
the
picking
design.
the fabric. You probably consult with the master tailor there.
But every aspect of the suit is specific to you.
Yes, it's specific to your preference. Obviously, depending on what tailoring house you work with, they're going to have different styles, and I can get into that later. But so meaning that, say I was a master tailor, I would be then going to the tailors and being like, you need to draft this pattern this way. I'm overseeing what you're doing in each step, and then also after that, they're creating what you call a basted fitting, meaning the jacket that they create is kind of loosely stitched together / basted together. And then you or a client would come in and we would try that on together and then decide what, small tweaks do we need to make after that.
I was telling Betsy I was in Thailand about 20 years ago, and I got a custom suit and a custom jacket, and it was the best fitting clothing I had, and it lasted a very long time.
Yeah.
Now I've got 2 suits that I consider expensive, and they're great. I mean, they're really good, but they're not as tailored. I mean, they're relatively tailored, but not as tailored as what I got when I was in Thailand. So, so what are some of the costs now that people are talking about for the kind of clothing at this level, or even in general? I mean, you can talk about the whole spectrum. I know I can go into a store, Joseph Banks, get a pair of pants for $100 and get a shirt for $50 or $60 and a sport coat for $150 or $100, and I'm good. Or I can go to the Salvation Army and get someone's suit for $40. What do you think? I mean, what are the options, and what would be, not everyone's going to spend $1,000 or $2,000 on a suit. What should people be thinking about as far as cost and payoff?
For our store, the thing we actually have to consider is how are we going to keep the doors open. So for bricks and mortar at downtown DC, it would make very little sense to have inexpensive clothing at our size. So what we try to do instead is to give people the option of standing out. So we carry many labels that aren't at department stores. Our most basic contemporary brand, you might be able to get a jacket for about $180, pants for $150, tops are going to be around $100, and that's probably as low as we go. And then our first contemporary not quite contemporary, just sort of a medium, neither contemporary nor Missy designer is Donna Degnan. So now you're up to a $350 jacket, $200 pants, $100 skirt. And then our highest range is either Marie St. Pierre out of Montreal, which is spectacular, or the beautiful dress I'm wearing, which is Dayanara. And now you're talking about $1,500 for a jacket, anywhere between $11 and $15 for a jacket. And Dayanara's jackets are an interesting medium between the custom and the made to measure. And her jackets range from $1,500 to $3,000. And we sell very, very few, and only when she's in the store. But people really do find that an $1,100 jacket will last for 3 or 4 years. It will never get tired. There are technological aspects to the fabric that justify the cost too. And
like what? What would make what are some of the things that are in this?
for example, antimicrobial infusions, they'll have antimicrobial pieces in the coat, so at the back of the neck or maybe under the arms, and then the fabrics have also been treated. So I carry these amazing felted pieces or scuba pieces or blends. Can you imagine a scuba and cotton blended jacket? It weighs nothing. It goes from the top of my shoulder to just above my knee, and it could not weigh more than 8 ounces.
I did not follow that. Scuba?
Scuba is a polyester fabric, and it's just, but they blend this poly fabric, and it's similar to scuba that you would wear scuba diving.
Oh,
seriously.
Okay.
And so it's spongy, it's lightweight, it breathes. It's one of the most breathable fabrics ever, and it's blended with cotton. So it doesn't have a scuba hand. It feels light, and yet it has that crispness that a scuba suit has. And it is just a piece of art that you're wearing. And it has incredible pockets. So, for example, that jacket actually did cost $1,700, and we sold 5 of them. And they are people's go-to jackets, warm weather, cold weather, year-round. Yeah. It is a technical marvel, as well as an aesthetic piece of art.
So my wife and I were in Seattle about a year ago, and she needed a coat, and she got this, we call it the warm and fuzzy. It's just like a fleece coat. But it was $160. She loves it. And it's like her go-to piece. She just wears it, around the house. She wears it out, and it's really comfortable. So I think we all can kind of relate to that great piece of clothing. One of the problems I have with retailers is that I'll go to, and I used to go to the Gap, and I'd find, that's a great pair of pants. And I'd never find them again. And so I kind of gave up that, and now I go to Levi's because they generally carry the same. Like, why is it that constant change of sizes and styling for things that are just kind of, pants? I mean, for men, I don't know what it's like for women. I know it's much different, but
we'd get so bored. And people do long for that, right? They long for it. Like, why can't I find a pair of pants like that one, which was so good? But it is true that there's enough trend in fashion, and you want to stay current enough that you will look silly if you wear pants from 6 years ago. It's very hard to do, because even if the general idea comes back, it doesn't come back in quite the same way or in quite the same fabric range. So for women, especially when we talk about interviews, say you've had your kids, you're going back into the workforce. Well, the last thing you want to do is pull out that suit that you wore before you had babies, because even though it still fits you, it's wrong. Yeah. So, or older women looking to get back in the workforce or to move up, they need to be incredibly current, because it just says that you're attuned to the times and to the changing, and you don't want to be left behind by change.
Right. I know that a while ago, chunk shoes were popular. And very quickly, it kind of went away. And if you were wearing them, like if you were just a little bit behind the curve, it was noticeable, right? So, what are some of the price points in the clothing that you all sell?
For Blank Label, our suits are $750. That's for a 2-piece suit, so jacket, trousers, and the canvas of the jacket. That's the internal construction of the jacket is half canvas. Mm-hmm. We do also have a full canvas option for an additional $200. Shirts are $95, but we also do shirts 3 for $250. So that's like $83 a piece or something like that. I've seen other custom shirts go up to like $200. So we really believe in, like an accessible experience. A lot of times clients that come in, this is their first time, their first foray into anything other than off the rack. So we try to make the experience as easy as possible, and also accessible, because if you look at like a fully bespoke like suit that you would get in like Savile Row in the UK, that's like a $3,000 suit. For most people, that's probably way too much. So kind of going back to your original question, like kind of price points, you can definitely go to a vintage store. And what I would say to look for is to make sure a suit jacket fits you well in the shoulders, and that the length of the jacket is proportional for your body.
Let's talk about that in a second. We're going to take a quick break.
Yeah.
You've been listening to You're Hired here on 96.7 FM. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. Today we're talking about what to wear to an interview. We'll be right back. You're listening to You're Hired on 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. Thanks for listening to our show. If you're interested in getting on the show, you can give me a call at 240-876-0276, or follow us on Facebook at You're Hired, And you can join my meetup where we teach interview skills at interviewskillstogetthejob@meetup.com. Again, I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. You're listening to You're Hired on 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. Welcome back. You're listening to You're Hired. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. You're listening to 96.7 FM in Arlington, Virginia. With me today, I've got Betsy Fisher of Betsy Fisher's Clothing here in D.C., Dupont Circle. Where is your store exactly?
18th in Connecticut.
18th in Connecticut. And also Christina Pham of Blank Label. And where's your store?
We're on K Street between 15th and 16th. So
awesome.
Really,
and we're talking about what to wear to an interview, and I guess clothing in general, which is, it's kind of, I mean, I get, like, you are clearly both joyful about what it is that you do. I feel like I'm almost the wrong person to be interviewing you, because to me, clothing is like a thing I have to do, not always something I want to do. I do like looking good. One of the things I did recently, I went to an interview for a job, and part of the job description and part of the company's culture is that playfulness, a little bit of playfulness. So I wore a very tight suit, and I had a Mickey Mouse watch someone had given me, and I put a black leather band on it, and I wore it, and it looked really sharp. And during the interview, I had like pulled it out to kind of say, "Oh, Mickey says it's 11:30," and it got a lot of good feedback of like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." What do you think about those kinds of accessories and the message that we're communicating when we go into these interviews?
I've never had a client say she's been invited to a playful interview. It has never come up. But so our accessories might be just a little bit more serious. Even a scarf, what I want them to do is make sure that they're not dealing with stuff that they'll fuss with or play with, because that would indicate that they're not quite as comfortable as they need to be. So perhaps we're talking about a really beautiful collar or just a gorgeous bracelet, something that's not going to move around or even make too much noise. We could do a funky ring, but for the most part, people don't. They really don't. Even earrings, we tend to keep them kind of small. And it's not because we want to be uniform. It's just because they're never invited to be playful. And there's nothing right off the bat, perhaps a pin. It's distracting. I mean, honestly, sometimes people use accessories as ways to start conversations. That's a different thing. You don't want that in an interview.
Let's talk about the pins for a second, because we're here in Washington, D.C. What do you tell folks about the American flag pin? That's kind of popular with a lot of the federal positions. You just say, "No, don't do it." Don't.
It has never come up.
Never come up. Interesting.
hasn't come up with me either. But I mean, if you want to put a lapel pin in your boutonniere, I think that's fine, as long as it's something small, discreet.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of accessories for men, I'd probably say if you are going to be interviewing for like a creative job, you kind of want to show some sort of like personality with what you're wearing. In general, I kind of not discourage, but mostly kind of encourage people to get kind of timeless pieces. So if we're talking about a suit, you know, kind of a go-to suit would be a navy suit, a mid-gray suit, maybe charcoal, not black, mainly just because like you look like you're working at the Secret Service or, you know, you're going to a funeral. So I really encourage people, if they do want to express themselves in different ways, do that with a tie, do that with a pocket square, maybe do some like jewelry for men. It would be like cufflinks or a tie bar or a tie clip. And those accessories are also usually a little bit cheaper. So like spend your money in that kind of garment that will serve you very well for many years to come in that suit, but then maybe play around with different fashion accessories like the tie and the pocket square.
Do you get into, when they come for an interview, do you get into kind of like, well, what's the job and how does that look and how should they portray themselves physically, or is that not really part of your...
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's important to know what they're interviewing for.
Yeah.
So it does come up. And also, with whom are you having lunch? How many interviews are there going to be? Can you wear the same things twice? Or how do you reuse pieces of this depending on with whom you're meeting? Mm-hmm. So it comes up. There's one other thing, though. Women do wear black. Women can wear black to interviews because even though navy is just a fabulous color, women can wear black. And then black gives you a little more opportunity to play. So, for example, you could have a more outrageous cut, or you can... there can be something slightly edgier about black because it's black.
Yeah, my first suit that my mom got for me after I graduated high school was a black suit from Ann Taylor. At the time, you know, they have a petite section, so that fit me. Yeah.
So I noticed you're wearing a men's suit.
Yeah.
But is it
my suit?
Your suit. Forgive me, but this is like, I'm old. So is it becoming more fashionable for women to wear a men's cut type suit, like with a tie and a button-down shirt?
Definitely. I've seen it more around DC. I don't know if you're familiar with the documentary called Suited on HBO, produced by Lena Dunham of HBO Girls. But it's a great documentary. You should check it out. It basically talks about the transformative power of clothing, which is really kind of what we're talking about here, how it builds confidence and how it kind of helps complete your identity. So yeah, definitely there are also some specific tailoring shops that cater towards women, female-bodied people, trans people, mostly in like New York. Bindle and Keep is the tailoring shop that's featured in that documentary. There's Kipper Clothiers in San Francisco. There's like Sharp Suiting in LA, and like the Tailory in New York City as well. So definitely you see that. And I think like androgyny also has become a little bit more of a trend too. I mean, if you look at Harry Styles, he's wearing some more what you would call maybe feminine cut garments or feminine garments.
I remember in the 80s, there was a kind of a shift where women were wearing suits. You're nodding your head.
Yes, I'm dating myself.
Well, yeah. So what do you think this is a phase, or it's more of a permanent trend?
No, I think it's more of a permanent trend, because what I've seen through all these years is that things that were so much more rigid, this is in style, this is not in style, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable, that's all dropped away. So, for example, there's always cropped pants are always going to be fine, shorter skirts are going to be fine, knee-length skirts are going to be fine. There are going to be different versions that are more fashionable, more stylish, and more flattering, depending on your age, size, etc. But there's such a range. The vocabulary, fashion vocabulary just got bigger for women especially. And it's growing exponentially for men as far as I can see.
Definitely, yeah. There's now like a specific men's New York Fashion Week.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Christina, I just read too that they're starting to do men's and women's together now. Like
the
the houses
great.
that do men's and women's are going to show them on the same runway.
And why is that?
I think for the reasons Christina was saying, that the people are more interested in each other's clothing, and the houses don't find it as...
When you say the houses, you mean?
I mean fashion houses. And I wish I could remember the names of the men's houses, because it was so interesting that we do men's collections, we do women's collections, but it's silly to show them separately. We're just going to show them together. And I think that's actually, it makes more sense. People are together. Why not? I mean, I would love to see the men's shows.
Yeah, we get a lot of clients coming in, and they see me. I'm usually in a suit, and they're like, "Oh, do you do women's clothing?" And I kind of have to like fuss around with the description, because I'm like, well, if you are a woman and you want to come and be fitted for something, and you're okay with the patterns that we have, I can definitely make a suit for you, and therefore I carry women's clothing. So, I mean, but honestly, what I've discovered is, the men that come in are just as self-conscious maybe with their bodies as women might be. Everybody has their own quirks, depending on how you stand, like with your chest out, or if you have one shoulder sloping one way, one sloping the other. It affects the way that like your clothing fit. And, some people are very self-conscious about this.
I'm curious, what got you into fashion?
So it's kind of a roundabout way. I have my degree in electrical engineering, and I got my first job out in Columbia, Maryland, which is halfway between here and Baltimore. I was at basically a desk job. After a couple of years, kind of discovered that I had this lower back pain. I eventually switched to a standing desk. After that, I discovered that the flats that I was wearing just really wasn't cutting it, like standing all day. And I was always somebody that pretty much always wore pants, wasn't really a skirts or dress type of person. Mm-hmm. And I've always loved men's shoes, like men's style shoes, like Oxfords, loafers. I just love them. I think they're beautiful pieces of work. And so I just thought about it, like, well, why don't I just wear them? If I like them, I should wear them. And I just thought about, well, what are my other male colleagues wearing? They're wearing chinos and a button-up. I can probably find that somewhere. So I began my search of, finding clothing that fit me. Like you know, I found something at Gap that fit me well, and then I went back the next season to buy it in another color, and the cut had completely changed. So that was really frustrating, just because I spent all that time going around to all these stores, finally finding something and being excited about it, and then discovering that it no longer fit me. So anyway, I just kind of, as I was looking into, what are my male colleagues wearing, I began to kind of learn about the history of clothing, why we wear what we wear, and just really got enamored with tailored clothing, and then began my frustration with just not being able to find something that fit me. Especially as somebody that's petite, it's already difficult, and then finding something in a menswear style was also very difficult. So I eventually found myself at Blank Label. I had read about it on this blog that I'd read years before. Was on Twitter one day, and I saw that they had opened up a pattern room in DC, and I got fitted, and I loved the experience, and I got a shirt. I came away with a shirt that fit me really well, and what's great was I got to pick all the details of the shirt, because a lot of times you go to a retail shop and you're just like, I have to just accept the shirt how it is because it fits me.
Right. And now I know that you, in your bio, you say you couldn't find anything. But what else really motivated you? Because clearly you're very passionate. You've been doing this for a while.
Yeah. This is the store's 29th year in business.
Wow.
So when I was a kid, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Pittsburgh has a little neighborhood called Squirrel Hill. And it is just lined, or when I was a child, it was lined with clothing stores and little stores and all these little places that it was so natural that you would go in and somebody would say, hey, Mrs. Fisher, how are you? Or this, that, and the other. And my parents, my sister, for some reason, they have tremendous taste. So clothing always mattered. And when I was in college, my sister would take me to Charivari in New York, she was one of the first people who ever brought in European brands. And so I'd been around beautiful clothing for a long time. And when I couldn't find it, it was so natural to see a little business. And my dad is also in his own business that was like, I'll start one. And when you're 24 and you think, I'm going to start a business, it's the perfect time. You're fearless and you have enormous amounts of energy. So you just go for it.
And you started it here.
I started it here because I'd come to college here. I went to Georgetown. And when I was done with it and couldn't find the suit, it was clear that there were no places like Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where people could just go to little stores and shop. There was Georgetown, but it had a different flavor. So what I was looking for was a place where you're not going to go in and bargain over what's the price or this, that, and the other. It would just be normal.
Well, that's awesome. So, so where do you think the future of clothing lies? I mean, is it just going to continue to be an evolving thing, or is there a direction that we're looking at in the next year or two people should be aware of?
I know we're going to see more tech. I know it's going to be infused in the fabrics and it's going to be infused in the functionality of the clothing. But for the actual retail of clothing, I think it will, I hope, certainly, given my business, is that even more people will find the comfort and satisfaction of going to a place where they're known and taken care of, and the trends are introduced to them in a way that's appropriate for their lives. So I think there are positive things going on all levels: design, technology, and service.
Have you seen technology infused in clothing?
I mostly just see it in the magazines, or the jacket that I was speaking of that has the beautiful panels of fabric that make it so that you can wear the jacket 5 days in a row and you never have to worry about it having become odorous. I see things like that, but I'm not seeing the stuff that measures your heartbeat yet, or that changes color with your moods, and all that's coming.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see some shops like Ministry trying to push kind of like tech fabrics.
When you say tech fabrics, you mean fabrics that are...
Oh, sorry. I'd be more specific.
That are more technical in nature?
Fabrics that are more, I guess, almost like athletic or sport-like.
Oh, okay.
So kind of like going along with our daily lives. We're always on the go, and somebody, wants to wear a suit all day and not feel hot or something like that. Some brands are working with, these fabrics that will move more with your body and feel more comfortable for you.
That is one of the things I hate about wearing a suit. In the summertime, it's just bloody hot. Yeah,
well, there's definitely things you can do to combat that. One is to find a jacket with a more open weave, so something like a tropical wool, a fresco, a hopsack jacket. The weave is just a little bit more loose, it's porous. And then another thing you can do is make sure that the lining of the jacket, that's the silk that goes throughout the sleeves and through the body of the jacket, you can get something that's half lined. So the silk just goes through the upper back. So the lower back is really where all the heat is trapped. So you can still look nice in the summertime. Just look at the Italians. They're in a very warm weather environment, and they're pretty much always, suited and looking good.
Christina, you've got to say that thing about the stereotypes on men and women before.
Oh, yeah, sure. So another thing I kind of came across when I was kind of making that transition from off the rack to custom was I would come across these shirts. Sometimes I would want to wear a tie, and I would discover that the colors on these shirts was just very flimsy. And I started looking into just manufacturing of, women's clothing. And basically the stereotype is that, women buy on trend, and they'll probably buy like every season. So something that I make for a woman doesn't have to be made well, because they're just gonna wear it like once or twice and that's it. Whereas a stereotype for men is, this guy probably doesn't shop a lot, so if they come in here, I want to get them a shirt that will last a long time. So I was just really frustrated with that, and I very much have now moved to the buy better, buy less mentality, buy clothing that kind of works together so I can create multiple outfits.
My experience, I'm going to let you talk, but my experience of buying men's clothing is that I was buying high quality shirts and from Nordstrom's. And then Nordstrom's decided to sell no more high quality shirts. And it's like impossible to find good quality shirts. And it's frustrating because I just want to buy good clothing.
Well, you're in luck because now there are stores like Blake Label, there are shirt maker, a lot of online shirt makers too, where you can just submit your measurements and ship right to you. Some of them are, we talked about tech before, some places also have these mobile apps that you can download on your phone, and basically they scan your body so they can attempt to get a well-fitting jacket or, shirt for yourself. So you have options now. They're definitely out there.
But you lose out on the tactile process. And that is just part of the pleasure of shopping, pleasure of clothing, pleasure of wearing them. And that's how does it feel? How does it look? What does the light do on it? All that kind of thing. But there are two things. When you said you were looking for Oxfords, have you ever seen A. Testoni from Italy? They put the effort into women's Oxfords that you're talking about going to men's Oxfords. And then that whole stereotype thing about men and women. I wanted to tell you that I was in New York and I'm talking to a guy whose family they have a custom shoe atelier in Paris, but he's actually, the line is actually German and he's from Italy. So whatever. He was telling me that men go into the shoe store and they spend thousands of dollars on these shoes, and they want to know about every stitch, about every piece of leather. Where did the leather come from? What kind of leather? How was it cured? And they are buying something that they plan to wear for 20 years. And I was almost embarrassed by the fact that the women come into the store, the shoes start at $3,000, and they're usually for an outfit. So it's a pump. It's not very substantial. It's going to be blue and feathers to go with this feather blue dress they have. And I thought, oh, that is really playing into the stereotype that you were talking about. So it cracked me up.
Going back to the buy better, buy less, this is, a prime example, shoes. Get good pair of shoes. Like, if you're going to wear a suit, like, probably the worst things you can see is if you're in a nice suit, but your shoes are not good. So, I would definitely advise stay against shoe soles that are, synthetic or rubber. And also get genuine leather shoes, because they are an investment. And the thing that people may not know is that the way that the sole of the shoe is stitched to the upper of the shoe is, if you're getting something that's Blake stitched or Goodyear welted stitched, the soles can be replaced. So as long as you take care of that shoe, meaning put shoe trees in it, maybe give it, polish it up every 2 weeks or a month or so, that shoe is going to last you exactly decades. Whereas I haven't found that for women. I buy all my shoes from Spanish shoemakers, and a lot of times they have a men's line and a women's line, and the kind of styles are very similar. It's just in women's size and last.
Do your friends see you in casual jeans and a t-shirt?
Grocery store runs on a regular basis. Plus, I actually have an amazing workout group, and I am completely and utterly grubby with them, and it's just the greatest place in the world because I don't have to worry about it.
Do you get all into the stylish athletic wear?
Absolutely not. My kids are embarrassed. They actually go to Lululemon and buy me Christmas presents there because they are ashamed of what I wear when I work out. But it's the only time when I just say, forget it. And the t-shirt is 20 years old with holes in it and grubby little Target shorts, and I'm so happy.
Yeah, I've been going to the gym. We go to the gym in the morning, 6 a.m., and the women in the gym class are wearing these like blouses. They look like it's like clothing. It's not like even spandex. You know, they have like loose fabric in the back.
Yeah,
and they are flowy and.
The workout clothes are beautiful.
Yeah, I'm amazed by what they can do with it, because I mean, if you're just wearing a cotton T-shirt, you're gonna sweat in that. Versus, now they have these synthetic blends that are better for wicking sweat off of you, but it just looks like a nice loose like shirt or something like that. Yeah, I mean, clients come into us and they probably start off with trousers and a shirt or a suit, and then later on they're like, well, I look so good, like during the week, what do I wear on the weekend? So I especially like that we carry all types of clothing. So we carry jeans, chinos, polo shirts.
Awesome.
Polished casual is one of the hardest categories for women.
Yes.
Because to look stylish in casual clothing, it's hard to do.
What advice would you give to someone, let's say, just out of college, they're going to get their first job? What should they do about what they're going to wear? Should they make the investment? What kind of investment should they make? What kind of advice do you think would be appropriate for them to take those steps in what they wear?
I would not advise them to spend money they don't have, because you can actually find beautiful clothes at any price point. So I would advise them to be extremely practical, perhaps do a black suit and a navy suit and figure out the pieces that will work together. So basically create a capsule, and there are plenty of blog posts that they can look at to figure out which pieces will work for them, and to bring a friend who's got a good eye to help them in the store so that they're getting things that are flattering.
And what blogs would you recommend folks reading about what to wear, how to dress?
I read some of the local stylist blogs, like Lonnie Inlander's Real Lifestyle blog, and I follow the DC Style Factory. But I'm not actually a huge blog reader. I spend so much time living at the store that basically that's all I do.
And do you read the magazines? Like, how do you keep up to date with the styles?
Do you know, I do it in the market. I almost, it's a treat to pick up a Vogue or something and look at the pictures, and I do it every once in a while to remind myself that it is not just what am I buying next, it is actually an art form. But I look at it, it's incredibly practical to me. It is not about fashion and trends, it's about what's next for my customer's closet.
Well, I have to say, I'm just going to be repetitive, but both of you look absolutely stunning in your outfits. So thank you so much for dressing up.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
when
you.
you came out today. Is there anything you'd recommend for folks to read if they want to kind of stay current?
Yeah, sure. One of my favorite blogs is called Put This On. This writer in San Francisco, he also has some additional supporting writers, but it's really educational. And also he helps with, curating, eBay postings for clothes that he enjoys. Some forums that are really great. Style Forum. You have some people that are just very into menswear there. And also Reddit. They have the male fashion advice subreddit.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I wouldn't think to go to Reddit but of course, it's the source of everything. Well, I want to thank you both for coming. Is there any way that folks can reach out to you, Christina, if they want to find you?
Sure. You can go on the website and book an appointment with us. Our website is www.blanklabel.com. Yeah.
Awesome. And Betsy?
www.betsyfisher.com, but betsy@betsyfisher.com to get me personally.
Awesome. And thanks again for coming out. I really appreciate it. I hope our audience learned something about what to wear and what not to wear. And we'll see you next week on the next episode of Your Hired Radio. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. You're listening to 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia.